everyone. My name is Snegha and I'm on the product marketing team at Wiz. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. We're really excited to walk through the topic of just AI and enterprise and the things that we've been thinking about there. For starters, really just looking at the data around AI has really taken over the cloud. We've noticed 85% or more of organizations are using some form of AI. And this is the broad range of so many different things happening in this space. And this really tells us the importance of the conversation we're having here, which is both the amount of innovation and abilities that it's unlocking for us, but also that the speed of that really makes it where we need to think about security and governance, both that we can grow into, but as well as having a really strong foundation. When we think about what has changed in the world of cloud security with AI in the mix, there are a lot of core principles about cloud security that stay the same for AI. Now, AI is an architecture in a lot of ways. It has similar risk, but in different forms. Agent architecture, though, does open a new threat domain. And that's some of what we'll be talking about today and a lot of us are learning from. But it really starts to highlight the things that we want to take account for in the space of AI, especially in enterprises, and acknowledge both taking security principles that you've applied to all of cloud into this space while also acknowledging the new surface areas that we need to govern and manage. So let's first talk about one mechanism of mapping AI in the enterprise. There's a wide range of how we could do this, but this really offers a simple way to even start having these conversations in our business or otherwise. So first is really talking about personal AI. This is, the shadow SaaS and really starting to think about what are end users really using. And this could be me at my job trying to use AI to make something simpler or trying something out. And a lot of the times this is typically personal ChatGPT or otherwise. Number two is MCP on endpoint. So, again, it's not technologies that we haven't heard of or we don't want people using in a way, but it is a personal account or personal aspect of this that typically sometimes lacks visibility on how it touches your systems and otherwise. Number two is really enterprise AI. So this is kind of a lot of what we talk about, which is more the approved versions of AI at work itself in our businesses and companies. A lot of the times this is in product co-pilots, so things like Salesforce Agentforce, Microsoft Copilot, things that we are actively deploying in enterprise to help with accelerating many different tasks and tools. Second here is really AI assistance. So starting to think about, we talked about OpenAI and different tools that people may use. But once you kind of have the enterprise model of that or have approved that for use, these start to become true AI assistants that folks are using day to day on their jobs or for different work streams at your company. Last but not the least, we can't forget about really the development side of things. When we think about the software development lifecycle, there is a wide range of dev AI tools that are now starting to be a big part of how we balance scale on the development side. An example here would be Cursor. Last but not the least is AI applications. And this is really a lot of the things that we're all doing to build on top of the power that AI has unlocked for us. Now, when we think about this, it's things like our AI AppSec, which is application runtime, as well as AI security posture management, which looks at all aspects, thinking about infrastructure to model, to data, to application. So this really starts to tell us the different layers of AI in the mix when we're thinking about the larger securing AI in enterprise. Now, we want to maximize the potential of AI. And the greater the potential we seek from AI, the greater the data and greater the access it must provide. All again highlighting the importance of security, data, and AI in the mix in our larger cloud. So what are some of the common security challenges in enterprise? Now, I would say this doesn't stop here. There's so many layers to this conversations, but these are a great place to start. First is unpredictable sensitive data exposure. A lot of the times it's a simple but also really nuanced thing to think about, which is large aspects of AI are very much connected to protecting your data, having a robust data security system. How the models are trained, the kind of data it is producing, the kind of data it has access to is really, really important. Not being able to predict that or understand where that exposure is to your company's sensitive data is something that comes up a lot in the challenges here. Number two is unpredictable entities with extreme access and permissions. Now we talk about zero trust models and least permissions and things like that. When we're starting to build AI, it's really introduced this world in which we are looking at how many different things does the tool have access to, and also starting to think about, are these direct identities, are these non-human identities, just really thinking about what are the wide range of entities that exist and how far do their permissions go. A lot of the times, to be able to do the wide range of things that AI may do, especially in agent form and otherwise, it can be really unpredictable and have extreme access and permissions that we don't always have insight into. Number three is novel risk to SDLC. And this is, we talked about the software development lifecycle for a second before, and we really introduced a new surface area here to that entire cycle. And that's in a few different ways. It's new tools in the mix. It's starting to code a different way, risks being introduced a different way, also attackers different way. A common one is also just thinking about how everybody is starting to do wipe coding now, which is we're using all these code assistants and code-based checks are different. And accounting for that is a key challenge. Rapid innovation and hype lead to insecure deployment. So I mentioned before, over 85% of the customer base really starts to already use AI. One thing that's really interesting to notice is the speed of adoption has really changed with AI in the mix. When DeepSeek came out, for example, the curve at which the adoption was an extremely steep line. Now, when things are this fast and there's so much buzz around it, it really takes away the steps that we may have taken typically for that foundation of best practices in security. So it's really important to think about as well. A couple others include managing organizational and user roles and permissions. So this is a larger topic in general where you're starting to think about what should a user have access to, or what should they have permissions to do? And then when are you acting in a user format versus through an agent or otherwise? And managing that end to end through your program at the company is something that is now shifting. Last but not the least, data loss through AI productivity tools, known and shadow. And this is a common one that we get asked, or all of us have been thinking about with AI, right? When we touch on personal AI even, let's say I'm using ChatGPT personally and it's not a work account, it's personal use, a big concern is really, am I sharing or are we using company data in a forum where it is not secure, or is it starting to spread or train into models where it's not supposed to be? And that kind of data loss just in your direct use as well as shadow use of AI is also a top concern. Now, I wanted to take a step back to just touch on, we talk about agents a lot. And in the world of agents, something that's really helped me is really just taking a step back and breaking down, what are agents really, and how has that really changed things in enterprise security? I'll first start with saying that in our AI research, agent-driven architectures have emerged as one of the fastest growing, but also least governed attack surfaces in enterprise AI, which just means we need to keep on top of understanding this and learning it together. So what is an agent? An agent is really an autonomous system that combines tools, data, and logic to execute tasks end to end without human direction in any of the steps. Now, a common question we discuss is what makes something an agent versus a tool of another kind? And there's three specific qualities that typically help me identify that. First is autonomous execution, the fact that it's able to operate without prompts from me. Number two, multi-step orchestration. So really being able to chain together multiple things to achieve an outcome, including APIs, including actions, integrations, or otherwise. Last but not the least, decision-making capability. It's able to follow a logical decision path to decide on what a next step should be. And these are the three criteria that typically help me identify when something is an AI agent versus not. Now, the reason this has introduced a new surface area of threats is a lot of the themes that we just touched on. First, they act, not just advice, which is they're triggering changes, they're executing actions, moving data across systems, and you don't have a man in the middle check for every single thing. And that means that is something to think about because it's able to reach outcomes and take actions in your core systems without a human in the mix actually checking for that or approving it. Number two is crossing boundaries. One specific agent workflow, we talk about how it's able to do multi-step orchestration. It's able to span across a lot of your data or your cloud, spanning multiple clouds, apps, data resources, which also means a common step that attackers take that we've seen in most of the common attacks is after you gain initial access, they're typically performing lateral movement before trying to access your crown jewels. And when we think about the boundaries that an agent is crossing, it's really starting to make lateral movement a potentially easier path for attackers. Last but not the least is the access here, so holding powerful keys. Agents do tend to have broader persistent permissions that, if they're compromised, really open the door to the kind of things that can be leaked or stolen through an attacker. There's also a few types of AI agents that sometimes require a different approach, both for use and security. First is productivity agents, really, automating the things that we typically have to do repetitively, right? Things like report creation, scheduling, content workflows. Second is customer-facing surface agents. So this is your interactive with human support chats, order processing, just personalizing that experience. Last but not the least is in your true build cycle, so code and DevOps agents, writing, testing, deploying code and infrastructure changes, and typically with pretty high-level permissions. Now, when we think about how we are looking at this across securing AI application, I think about this in 4 buckets. First is visibility, really being able to say, what are we using? Where is the AI? What is being looked at and what is in use? The 4 buckets typically are infrastructure, so these are your deployments across your workloads, network, identity, the models itself, the data, so what are you training the data on, where is this data, and then applications, things like AI tools, MCP, and more. And visibility is, if we take anything away from some of these conversations, is we really just need to start with visibility. That is the first place we need to start to say, where are things happening? Number 2 is posture. So being able to say, what are the permissions? What is the blast radius of what's happening? Really positioning what it's touching in your environment. Third is the software development lifecycle. So being able to trust the model, thinking about your embedded SaaS, guardrails, supply chain security, and again, having visibility into what agents and tools are even in the mix here in your software development lifecycle. Last but not the least is runtime. This is what's actually happening real time. Visibility of active AI applications, monitoring any behaviors that are normal or abnormal, and starting to learn from those patterns, as well as being able to monitor different tools' behaviors, especially as we build on top of some of these AI models. Now, a couple things I'll mention here just from how we've been thinking about things too. How is secures an AI application is really across the cloud. And we unify findings across 3 critical vectors: cloud, code, and runtime. And the great thing here is that shared context is critical to understand what's actually happening. This includes, just like we discussed, everything from detecting AI services and the models, the agents and tools that are actually being used to build, as well as monitoring the live AI application, which really gives us the space to meet our customers where they are to provide end-to-end AI security. Now, a quick look at some of these things is starting to use agentless visibility to really look at everything you need with AI Bomb for what are you even using in your environment. You can then start to surface AI misconfiguration, and this is built in. Any service you're using, we're able to surface where something may be misconfigured or otherwise. You put a lot of these pieces together and you can start to surface entire attack paths to AI, being able to say, what is the real risk? What is a priority? Where is your data leaking? And start to remove those critical attack paths to AI. You can also think about this in the real-time manner with removing AI threats with WizDefend. And this is real-time threat detection, common attack techniques, and then really empower your SecOps team to reduce the blast radius with that end-to-end context that we just touched on. A quick look at what enterprise AI can look like, even in just our world, and applying that with some best practices. Security is really, really critical, and having that single point of control for all AI interactions with enterprise data is really important. While doing that, you also need to appreciate that there is going to be several teams that are building and using these things, and there are shared AI agents across enterprise. Some examples of the things that we've been working through are deal intelligence for the go-to-market team, the research team building out reports, the support team, and more. A few things that work really well is making sure that there's an approved personal AI agent. There's a central repository for all the agents. Again, going back to that visibility, where is everything? Preserving RBAC, so personal access only, making sure we know who has access to what. Data not being stored locally or centrally, and continuously updating these processes and knowing what's connected to what. I'll leave us with a summary of some of the learnings that I find really useful anytime we're talking about enterprise with AI. Everything really starts with visibility. So really being able to answer those key questions of what tools am I using? Where is the risk? How do I mitigate this risk? What does it touch? Second, focusing on data. Data is everything with AI. Being able to know what data is accessible and how it could possibly be poisoned or leaked, and knowing where that is, and really avoiding creating any new central data repositories. Third is identity and access, preserving permissions and also knowing what those permissions are, especially with agents and such where you need enhanced permissions. Better safe than sorry. We talked about how a lot about certain flows don't require an approval, don't require an interaction. But it's important to understand when something needs that versus not. So when there are tools that are in line for things where you need to be safer, make sure that there's a man in the loop for that, but surface it in a way that it's actionable and usable. Last but not the least, only deploy approved personal or enterprise agent and maintain a single source of truth for all the agents and their permissions. Thank you so much for your time. Hopefully this just gets you to start thinking about AI and enterprise, agents, and so many other tools. And we hope to both meet you and learn from you here at Wiz. Thank you for your time.